Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today? Where you could probably tell by the title, I will be talking about Cosmic Express today in the usual sort of, I finished recording all the videos for a series, and here's my review on it. I guess spoiler warning for Cosmic Express, not that there really is much in way of spoiler warnings. The only thing to spoil really is, there is some things to spoil, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's like, Cosmic Express is not really a game ruined by spoilers so much as, I suppose, if you get told the solutions, it's a game which gets ruined about. But also, probably not that much, because it's surprisingly difficult, I think. But anyway, good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 9:22 PM on Thursday, June 8th, 2023. So yeah, just yesterday I finished recording the final episode of Cosmic Express. It kind of came as a shock because I did not expect to solve. I gave you your spoiler warning. If you're genuinely worried about spoilers of Cosmic Express, I wouldn't be, but you know, this is definitely your time to click off. I suppose my summary on the whole is I thought it was good. I don't think it was like, it's not my favorite puzzle game I played, and you know, I'd give it like a solid 6 to 8 somewhere, like probably 7. It seems fair for it. Where I'd say it's good, but it to me personally, I think it has some shortcomings. Maybe 6.5 or something. I don't know. Bear in mind, I use the entire scale of the video game rating scale. So 5 in my eyes is like, this is fine. 6 is like it's like better than fine. It's like nice, and then 7 is like good, and then 8 is like great. 9 is like amazing, and like 10 is perfect. So yeah, I would give it like a good rating, you know. So somewhere from 6 and 7, it depends. And I do like puzzle games a lot, but the thing is, it's not my favourite puzzle game in the world. I think it has some shortcomings. I think it has some really cool things going for it as well. But I think it just like, I'm not sure how to say it necessarily, but I don't think any of the puzzles quite enraptured me like the same way that some other games like Baba Is You, Stephen Sausage Roll, even some Snakebird levels have. And it's probably a bit negative, I suppose, to start with the flaw, I think, in the game. Well, not the flaw, I think, in the game, but the general sort of feeling of flawed. The general feeling of flawed things I got from a game compared to the good things. But, you know, if you've watched these videos enough, you probably know that I tend to be quite critical of these sort of things. For really no apparent reason, you know. I do like the game. Don't get me wrong, I like the game. So, just want to establish that. As I drink some water. But yeah, the biggest problem I found with Cosmic Express is it feels like a game which is incredibly open-ended, probably too open-ended for a puzzle game. And you might say that sounds a bit weird. Isn't that kind of good for a puzzle game? And to a certain degree, I think it is. But I also would say at the same time, it's kind of tiring in a puzzle game. Well, it becomes tiring eventually. The thing which I think Baba Is You and Snakebird tend to do incredibly well is the concept of teaching, like I suppose, throughout a puzzle game. Like, the aim of puzzle games obviously to like challenge and stimulate your brain mentally. Of course, that, you know, what's the point of a puzzle game without puzzles? But the thing is, there's also, you know, there's like a sub-goal, I suppose, from a video game design perspective in puzzle games is to make the player feel smart. Well, to make them feel dumb and then make them feel smart. Which I feel like it's kind of missing from Cosmic Express, because a lot of the times I solved a level and went, oh, okay, something like that. It never was because the level felt cheap necessarily, because just by the structure of a logic of a game mechanics, it can't, by nature, I think, feel cheap. You know, it's very, like, clearly laid out rules, I suppose. It's very self-consistent, and because they don't introduce a huge amount of mechanics, there's never times where there's, like, some weird edge case between mechanics. It is pure and unadulterated, just using its mechanics. So I think that's a really good point of Cosmic Express, is I never beat a level, or very, very rarely I beat a level and went, that felt cheap, or I was like, I don't know how I was meant to get that. A lot of the times, it sort of is like, it's quite anticlimactic when I solve a level, because I'm just like, whoa, because a lot of the levels tend to be quite open-ended because you have so much space to work with, just to move around with stuff. It's really hard to get started, and then sometimes I find myself just sort of like lucking into the answer, because despite the fact everything's so open, there's also very like restricted like patterns that I suppose you have to do for a solution. Not for all levels. There are some really good levels in the game. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like I sort of went back and forth a lot between the levels, where sometimes I was like, whoa, that is like an awesome level concept, and then I went to the next one and I just sort of like randomly stumbled into the answer, or I felt like very forced into this answer. And I think that's by nature of its quite minimalist design in Cosmic Express. It never... I don't think it's quite as good as teaching its concepts, I suppose, which is good, not necessarily good in a sense, but it's sort of like, it's fine in a sense, because Cosmic Express doesn't really have much to teach you. Its first few levels are perfectly well and good for teaching its mechanics, but it was like little tricks here and there through Cosmic Express, which you sort of just had to like learn intuitively, is perhaps what I'd say. Like maybe, I don't know if it's maybe like the levels are like a slightly strange order or something, or maybe just due to its like open nature of its sort of game. It makes it difficult to sort of like hone in and be like, oh yeah, this is like a skill which I learn now, compared to, you know, something like Talos Principle or not Cosmic Express, Babba's U, which I feel like do a really good job at illustrating new mechanics at introducing, like Talos Principle, and I forgot about it, but it's really, really good at it from what I remember. How very much it like builds upon an expectation or something, and then it challenges that expectation by being like, hey, this looks impossible with your current expectation, teaches you something, and then subverts it again. It does that quite often. Babba's U is quite similar in its own regard, but Babba's U tends to introduce quite a lot of mechanics, while Talos Principle I think is a bit more minimal with its mechanics, but still. It's actually got kind of like an interesting similar sort of thing to Talos Principle, because Talos Principle is like an open world game. It's not gridlocked. You can stand anywhere. There is undoubtedly... it feels a lot more open-ended, shall we say, in Talos Principle as well. Cosmic Express, despite being gridlocked, also has that sort of feel, where a lot of levels I would open them up and be like, you know, I don't even know how to like try and get started on this level, which is a common feeling in puzzle games, but I just have to point out that I noticeably felt it much more often while playing Cosmic Express and other games. And maybe that's like, maybe, you know, also Cosmic Express maybe just wasn't the game for, like, wasn't a puzzle game which clicked with me as naturally as the other puzzle games. I think that's totally fair as well. I think that's totally fair. Especially with my style of solving puzzles, is to try and simplify the problem down by making assumptions. Cosmic Express, I think, is interesting in a challenge that it doesn't allow you to make all that many assumptions. All the assumptions you had to make feel very blind, in a sense. I guess that's what I mean. But on the whole, apart from that, that's really like the main like problem. My main complaint's a bit strong, I suppose, but like the main sort of like feeling I got, not main feeling, that's also a bit strong, but the main negative feeling I got from Cosmic Express, where at times I was just like, this is like it's sort of like, it's stupefying in the sense, like it stumps you, but it's also unsatisfying sometimes to solve. But that's just fair, you know. Puzzle games will have ups and downs, will have good levels and bad levels. You can't have absolute bangers every single time. Even Babba's U, my favorite favorite puzzle game of all time, not every level is a banger. Some worlds are probably like duds as well. But yeah, I guess onto good for Cosmic Express now. I think what Cosmic Express does well, perhaps not to the same extreme as Steven Sausage Roll, but, you know, it's hard to beat Steven Sausage Roll in simplicity and how well Steven Sausage Roll uses its mechanics over and over again. But Cosmic Express at its heart is quite simple mechanically, you know. It's a very simple concept. Deliver the aliens to the correct boxes. And they have not a huge amount of mechanics. At least the mechanics they do don't change things, not changing so much, but don't require you to learn a whole new system. Like, oh, this one means that the green alien suddenly means that you got to think a bit more about how you pick up things. The question mark block means that now you got to think about what you're holding, like which aliens on board as you pass them and things like that. I actually think one of the most interesting level that they have is the Cassiopeia world, where it's basically like, oh, but they don't introduce any inherent mechanics. It's just that they introduce like problems which you had to get around. But in Cassiopeia, a lot of the times you'll find the train is too long for you to like maneuver through to the ending or something, or to finesse your way exactly into getting that delivery and ending like you normally would. It's interesting. Where it actually built an interesting set of levels from restriction, I suppose. Yeah, but Cosmic Express inherently is a very simple game. It's a very easy game, I think, just to pick up and play. If you're not into puzzle... Well, okay, here's the thing. because of its simplistic nature, I think it's very easy to like comprehend and understand, and also has enough of a mechanical variety to feel like we're introducing new things while not really overstaying its welcome for levels. That it does expertly well, I think. But it also is not like that simple a puzzle game. It's not a puzzle game I think I would recommend. If you're like, hey, I'm looking to get into puzzle games, what game would you recommend? I would be like Snakebird Primer. It's a fantastic sort of like easier way into like difficult puzzle games, while also just keeping things like fresh and having a very nice aesthetic as well. I think Cosmic Express is genuinely surprisingly difficult, but its difficulty, again, it feels a bit strange. Its difficulty I can't describe it very well, but it feels very different. Also, is Celeste here? Because it sounds like a Shooting Stars. No, she was here. She must have been here earlier, I don't know. But its difficulty feels really weird. Like, different in a sense, where a lot of it feels like difficulty through being lost rather than difficulty of, like, how do I overcome this problem? I guess what I mean is, like, it's hard to identify the problem in a lot of times through the Cosmic Express levels. I'm not saying that's necessarily bad. I'm saying it's very different. And I think it just, like, wasn't something that quite appealed to me as much. Or maybe it was something I was like, I would have liked maybe... I don't even know what I would have liked, because it's hard to say what to necessarily improve on, because I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. I think it's just different. But I think it just was something which was not as much to my tastes. Now, I know you got to bear in mind that even though I probably sound quite negative, I'm not actually negative towards the game. I still rate it like a 6, 7. It's still, like, good in my eyes. I just, like, it's just me, you know, for whatever reason, I take, like, a negative and be like, okay, what can we learn from this? Because I find it's more interesting to talk about things like shortcomings, I suppose, in games rather than the things that it does well necessarily. Which might be, like, weirdly counterintuitive, but I don't know. I think it's just in my sort of, like, perfectionism nature. So let's talk about the good and great. Cosmic Express has got a lovely charm to it. It's got a fantastic minimalist design. It's very clean. It's super readable, which is a fantastic thing as well. It has, you know, the mechanics are easy, relatively easy. I would say the portals get kind of, like, iffy. But the mechanics are, like, easy to use. I would say it looks like a game which was definitely designed for mobile first, I think. The buttons are very small, and it's got a very sort of, like, spread out and minimalist UI, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but basically, as soon as I played a game, I was like, this looks like a mobile game. Like, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I play a lot of mobile games, to be fair, but it's like, this clearly looked like, to me, it was designed with mobile in mind, which I don't think is a bad thing. If anything, it's kind of like more of a thing where, like, hey, maybe we should try this game on mobile. And I think it makes sense the more I think about it on mobile, because its mechanics are very simple to, like, conceptually remember. You're doing the same thing throughout the entire game, you know, staying with Steven Sausage Roll. I suppose in Snakebird as well, is deliver the aliens to the boxes and then get out. And the mechanics they introduce are very self-contained in the world. It's probably quite an easy game to pick up and put down, so it probably lends quite well to the mobile format, I think, or, like, tablet or any sort of portable device. So, I don't know, maybe give it a try, and that's something. It was a very cheap game as well, and, you know, from what I record. I think it can't have been more like than £5, I assume. But it's also been a while. It probably was even less. It might have been like £2 or something. I don't know if that's true. But it's got very charming style, I would say. It's very simplistic and it's very clean. It's readable. The sounds it makes is fun. I'm not going to say it's, like, revolutionary in terms of aesthetics or anything like that, because that would probably be overselling it. It's just nice. It's a very small, like, development team from what I recall. You know, it's still very impressive for what it put out. So what else did I like about it? I liked its final world actually quite a lot. I liked that the levels started combining, like, the mechanics together as they sort of, like, approach the singularity of a nova in the middle. Where the final level then required you to, like, combine all the mechanics together in a level. I would say the final level probably exemplifies the sort of feeling of being lost, like, to a ridiculous degree, because it feels so open-ended. It's really hard to get, like, started or even, like, tackle things in a level like that. I guess that's probably why it sort of doesn't appeal to me as much, because I'm not so... Normally in puzzle games, I like the feeling of being like, okay, I've got some, like, ideas of what to try, but I just can't figure out how to, like, string these ideas together into a coherent solution. While Cosmic Express is sort of like, okay, the solution, once you have the idea, is not too difficult, I think, to find, but it's finding it in the first place, which is the difficulty. It's kind of like puzzle exploration, which we all know what I think about exploration, and it's just not to my tastes. But I still think it's a good game. I would, if you like puzzle games, yeah, I would recommend you try it, because one, it's super cheap. You know, it's a super easy game to pick up, put down. You won't have, like, any regrets, I think, buying it, because, I mean, again, it's cheap. And it's got a lot of content, to be honest, and I think genuinely a lot of the puzzles are quite interesting, the way they sort of subvert your expectation, like, and I think the absolute, like, the creme de la creme of Cosmic Express is once you get to the monolith levels. That is a fantastic concept. So yeah, this is like mega spoilers, I suppose, for Cosmic Express, or the biggest you can get for spoilers. Once you, I don't know if you had to solve all the levels or if it's just the final level, but at some point you unlock, I think it's probably when you solve the final level, you unlock the monoliths, where basically these black monoliths appear in levels which you've done or seen previously. And then when you click on a monolith, what it will tell you is like, hey, you need to solve this level again, but you need to do something, you need to achieve a specific goal. And the specific goal is often you need to deliver one of the aliens to a very specific box, rather than delivering them to like any box which works. And it's amazing because I think it speaks volumes of actually like the level design, or how well they've tested these levels, or like thought about these levels. Is every single time I went to a monolith level, the monolith solution was not the solution I found, which I think is incredible that they did it. Like, I don't even know how you would find that, but it's such a fantastic idea and a concept for a puzzle game, because you spend all this time on a level, like solving it, you're turning every single thing, you're like ruling out possibilities and saying this is impossible, that's impossible, and you're like, all right, I found the solution. But then the monolith comes and just basically flips everything on its head, provided you didn't find a particularly weird solution, I think, to a level. It goes, hey, you need to now challenge your own assumptions on this level again, because I'm telling you, you can actually solve a level this way. There's a different way to solve this level with this added restriction. Can you do it? It's such a fantastic challenge, because it's sort of like tapping into a very primal instinct, I suppose, when you do puzzle games, is the desire to feel like you're clever, I suppose. And then it's literally just like issuing a challenge, being like, hey, that's pretty good the way you solve that level. Here, I'm challenging you now that you can do it better. And that sort of perfectionist being like, yes, I can do it better, is probably inherent in a lot of people who like puzzle games. I'd imagine it's such a brilliant, I think it's such a brilliant mechanic, and a brilliant way to revisit these levels and basically recontextualize them. There's a lot of times I went to previous levels where I ruled out previous things and got a solution by being like, okay, this must be impossible because if I did this, then this would happen. If I did this would happen. So there's no way this could be a possibility. And then I come back to it and it's a monolith level, and they basically just go like, hey, that assumption you made, it's wrong. I'm telling you there is a solution which allows you to do this. Figure it out. And it just, a lot of them, the monolith levels were really great, I would say. Probably not all of them, but they were really like, it's a really nice spice in the challenge. It's almost a shame that it was so little, to be honest. And I think it was very cool, like thematically, for the final level to have a monolith, like you solve it and then you have a monolith variant and then you have a double monolith variant. I will say, like, the final level is probably a bit much, I think, for in like for a puzzle game. Like, and as I said, I think it does exemplify like that feeling of being lost while playing Cosmic Express a lot more than any other level in the game does. But again, that isn't inherently bad, because it might just be, you might prefer that style of like problem solving, I suppose, in a puzzle game, in which case, yes, Cosmic Express is going to tick every single box for you. So I don't know how I describe it, except for like, if you can give Cosmic Express a try, why not? Like, give a first world a try or something, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a free trial, a free version you can like download on your phone or something. I mean, what can I say, except for the game is just more of what the first world gives you. If you like that first world and you were like, yeah, this seems pretty fun, absolutely buy the game, play the rest of the game. But the rest of the game is just basically sort of compounding on that first level. I don't think there's anything like incredibly subversive in the game, which seems to be like a staple now for puzzle games. Like, I mean, I say that, but the monolith like idea is still kind of subversive. But it's just, I suppose, like the stakes that the levels which other puzzle games go to, I suppose, to subvert your expectation nowadays, kind of like makes it like pale in comparison, which is just kind of like unfair judgment, I suppose. But yeah, so Cosmic Express is what I describe it as definitively fine to good game. It's not going to make my top 20 games of all time. I still think it's just like a nice game. It's a nice like puzzle game. It's nice like head scratcher, etc., etc. There are genuine like levels which I do enjoy. There's a lot of levels. There's also levels which I didn't enjoy. It's not like, okay, I got to reiterate. It's not like I didn't enjoy the levels. I think the way I could describe the levels which didn't appeal to me as much is a lot of them ended up being quite unsatisfying, which feels a bit sad, I think, from a puzzle game. But it's only unsatisfying for me personally. You might not get that same unsatisfaction. Everyone's different, These are only my opinions. So yeah, Cosmic Express, solid, 7 out of 10. I would give it 6 to 10, 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, and 6 out of 10 probably. It's good. It's good. I don't regret playing it in the slightest. Would I play it again? Would I recommend it to other people? And maybe. You know, I would be a bit more hesitant to do it necessarily because it didn't appeal to me as much, but it might appeal to you a lot. So if it's your favourite game, or more power to you. Don't let my own opinions dissuade you, because everyone's got their own opinion. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode up here, so if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope you see each other weekend, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now. I guess I'm off.